So I've been looking at all this information and a lot of videos on YouTube and as well as the news and everything. All these people telling us that very soon a lot of economies internationally are going to begin to crash. And I saw this article for a Canadian and it says, a third of Canadian businesses directors expect our economy to get worse. And then on the bottom it says political squabbles, rising interest rates, and uncertainty surrounding NAFTA talks are damaging Canada's business outlook. And I was just like, those reasons alone, political squabbles, rising interest rates, and uncertainty surrounding NAFTA talks are some of the reasons why Canada is going to have its economy ruined, its money, do what it's been doing for the last while in Canada, and that's being basically worthless. You go to work, and when you come home, you're going to go pay your rent, and your rents are like over the roof, your electricity bills are over the roof. Now people got this whole carbon tax, the fuel's going up, and it's like, out of every country on the planet, Canada should be able to fix these things on its own. In Canada, you got so much land to farm, you got so much land for real estate, you got so much opportunity, so many natural resources and oil, and yet people in Canada have to worry about these crashes. Now, the United States that has like 400 million people, that the land is extremely populated. The UK where its land is extremely populated and everything is dependent on banks. Like a lot of people can still go out in the United States at least and go farming and live independently, and those states can find a way to better their own economies, their own things. Yet, every time something happens politically, every time something happens with Wall Street or the stock market or gold or whatever, these people suffer immensely, and somehow, all these people go into poverty. So basically what I'm trying to say, mainly for Canada, Canada, which has a much more smaller population than the States. Yes, it has almost the exact same landmass and probably more resources to work with. It's looking like this. If you go to British Columbia, if you go to places in Canada like Toronto, a lot of places that are a little densely populated, like the main city areas, it's ridiculous. Like bureaucracy, like just the way things are going are ridiculous. If you look at the media in Canada, it's a bunch of BS. It's keeping people dumb. The education system is keeping people dumb. Since that Trudeau came out, it's dumbing people down even worse. It's making people stupid to the point where people are looking at TV for solutions. They're looking at their news channels for solutions instead of taking their time and resources to begin to study what's actually going on, to begin to actually see what's going on politically, to begin to see what these prime ministers are actually doing, to see if these new laws that are coming in, censoring our speech and everything's becoming expensive and ruining people's lives. People can begin to see that, and as communities, especially with this low population they have, they can begin to really get information across to their neighbors, to their people, to their family, until they're influencing politics or influencing their local law enforcement to even look at the laws that they're going to be enforcing for the future. Laws that are censoring your speech, laws that are not allowing you to question things, yet the media is dumbing you down. It's making you more stupid. And the result of it is that whenever these big crises happen, whenever the price is going to be raised, whenever they're going to, blame Canadians or people like Canadians for global warming, just where your government tries to shame you and tries to make you feel stupid and small and like they're in charge of everything and like they're in charge of every aspect of your life, like every single law that comes out, every single thing that happens is done for a good reason by the Canadian government. Yet the people in Canada themselves can't see that the Canadian government looks just like a government in the UK, or looks just like a government in the United States, looks just like any government right now in Europe. And it's like a government that's going left wing, it's leaving its conservative roots, and it's aiming for something that's totalitarian, invades your privacy, something that is literally taking away people's rights and as well helping countries like the United States and the UK invade places like the Middle East. So meaning that we are basically joining like some new world order type government where we do everything that our international partners do. Whenever big talks happen internationally, our country has to go there and listen to everything that these people make up for our countries. Especially small populations like Canada, which have big land masses. You know, these small populations should be able to make their own future, should be able to make their own future certain by in reality, you know, our government making sure that our small businesses and our expanding populations have security, that we have other ways of feeding ourselves, that we have other ways of making our businesses go forward, bettering our currency system here in Canada, even by making something that's maybe different from the dollar, something that's just for Canadians. You know what I'm saying? Something that we can trade with our North American partners and other partners around the world that are like-minded. You know, countries that are not so densely populated and have so much political trouble, you know, that they get affected so bad. And why are we getting affected by those situations here in North America? Where you don't have much of a population, you have a lot of good resources, there's a lot of good farming, you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of potential for people to continue good with their lives, for their money not to be affected in the same way that everybody else is being affected, yet their money is being affected like that. And it's just these little reasons that they throw out on the news. Political squabbles, rising interest rates, and uncertainty surrounding NAFTA talks are dampening Canada's business outlook. And same is being said in other countries in Europe, as well in the United States. And then you study the past when stock markets have crashed or something happened in Wall Street, and countries started getting these domino effects where they started, their economy started collapsing. There was riots, there was fighting. You know what I'm saying? It's because everything is being controlled by basically international banks. You know, and here in our countries, it's controlled by central banks that are working for international banks. And today, these banks are actually influencing our political outcomes, are influencing the way our businesses are going to go for the future. They're the ones that are raising all these interest rates. They're the ones that are influencing people to raise the rent on people who are middle class and of lower income, where even people who have a lot of money are finding this ridiculous, where our jobs are not covering these things. And at the same time as all this is happening, you got these banks who are doing this to us, talking about going cashless, about making the world cashless, where every bit of our income is going to be put on basically like a microchip or just a credit card. And a lot of people say, hey, that's good. You know, the money's going to come easier. It's all direct deposit. But think about this. Now you're not going to be able to use cash. Now you're not going to be able to make deals with people. People are not going to be able to sell things without them being licensed. You know what I'm saying? So people are not going to be able to survive, is basically what I'm saying. When they raise the prices on things, there's going to be no negotiation for the prices. Whenever they want to tax you for whatever, they'll take the tax directly out of your bank. You know what I'm saying? There's no avenue for escape once your money goes electronic. They can raise the prices of the mortgage. Basically, the banks, and just like the governments do now, basically, are going to own the majority of the land that is not owned by homeowners. So basically, the banks, the one that's going to be controlling land and selling land to people, they're the ones that are going to be keeping your land when foreclosures happen. Just like the same thing that happens now, but it's going to be on steroids. Any Canadian can tell you, hey, you know, I worked really hard and I bought a home. Yeah, I'm paying it for the next 50 years, but I really love my home. But maybe that Canadian should really look at it and see how much he's actually paying for his home, how much he's paying for things around him, and how much money does that person have left for them to enjoy their lives, to do things better with their kids. You know what I'm saying? Where both parents are not there working and struggling like hell, and all they got to look forward to for entertainment is going to watch a movie, going to drink some liquor, going to talk a bunch of BS, because that's the only thing you got in your mind. What I'm talking about is the way the media is getting into our heads, the way our movies, everything, it's dumbing us down. Where instead of talking about important events, the way our our diplomacy is going with other countries, we're talking about Wonder Woman. You know what I'm saying? Instead of looking why we got refugee crisis in our country, what's in reality fueling that, and how our tax dollars are actually sponsoring terrorism around the world, just like the United States and the UK, where the governments are taxing the people to hell. They're putting a bunch of regulations and restrictions. The banks are basically owning everybody's property, making everybody's life impossible, yet all your tax dollars are going to create a bigger problem for yourself. Because what we're doing is that we're ruining our diplomacy, we're ruining political diplomacy with other countries, and as well we're making our image look bad to other countries because our troops are out there invading other countries. And the reasons that our media tells us that we're after terrorism, but the same media doesn't tell you is that places like the United States and the United Kingdom, in Canada, and all our Western countries now are paying tax into a corrupt system that is working together internationally, and it is a tyrannical system that wants to censor our speech, is already invading all of our personal conversations with things like Facebook, where things like YouTube, if you put a video out, you're getting censored, you're getting blocked, where things like Google is a bunch of controlled information that's manufactured to be like propaganda. Basically, they're taking away real education, they're taking away the real ability for people to actually have a good, intelligent system that thinks for itself. It's turning everybody into a bunch of dependent idiots on the system, on the media. You know what I'm saying? You got to look at your TV or the internet, or you got to look at your local law to do something. You want to grow your own food, you're afraid because there might be laws and regulations on it. Let's just say you want to go up to a cow and drink its milk, in places like Canada. Or let's just say you want to sell some raw milk, and boom, you can get SWAT breaking in through your farm door, you know what I'm saying, or your front door because you're drinking raw milk, or you distributed raw milk and they found out about it. You know what I'm saying? Just all these regulations that are keeping people, especially people in Canada, from having normal, functional lives. To the point where in a country with so much land and so much opportunities and so much resources, so much potential, yet people are living like they're living in New York City. Think about this. In Canada, there's certain areas, the areas that everybody wants to move to, where you're not freezing your butt off. If you move to a good area, you could find yourself paying unbelievable rent prices. It's so full of rules and regulations, and you pay such a high price for it. You know what I'm saying? That you literally can't live. So I made this comparison a few years ago. Canada has a landmass the size, basically, of the United States, a little bigger than the States. It's comparing to the size of Russia. Russia's way bigger, but still, Canada is up there. It's almost comparing in size with Russia. It's like almost the biggest country, landmass-wise, on the planet. Yet, the people who have maybe like 34 million in population for the whole of Canada live like they pay rents and prices and are basically living with the same regulations as someone who is living in a highly populated New York City. I'm not talking about New York State, I'm talking about the Big Apple itself, New York City. That's the kind of price and regulations and the kind of life people are seeing in Canada if they want to go live somewhere nice. And you look how much population Canada has, it's ridiculous. That's how bad it's gotten in Canada. That's how bad politics is in Canada. That's how bad banking is in Canada. And the thing is that people who move to Canada are so happy that they've gotten out of their old country, or they think that countries like Canada are such good countries, are such secure and safe countries, that they put up with it. But eventually everyone realizes that they've been swindled. They went to a country that they thought was better. Maybe it was a little safer, but economically, even though it's supposed to be better and it seems better, really the way you are living as a citizen is absolutely ridiculous. You have no flavor in your life. The only flavor you have is watching movies from the United States with English actors in them. And when Canadians do make movies, they make movies almost that are so cheesy that they're trying to look so much like the movies they make in Hollywood that literally they're not they're not really making movies for themselves. They're not really covering their own history the way they should. They're not tackling political events. There's no patriotism in Canada. It's so bad that you got people saying that Canada has no culture. It's multicultural, meaning it's everyone's culture. And it's such a leftist, socialist, social engineering type situation that literally, like, if you even want to have pride on top of all these expensive things, you can't. Because there's also an LGBT movement that is so powerful in Canada that literally, like, people can't say anything offensive. That the anti-racism thing is so powerful in Canada that people can't say that they're proud of having their own European heritage. You know what I'm saying? So Canada is being transformed. That, like, all that stuff that is happening in Europe and the United States, all that social engineering, it's happening in Canada, but it's much more worse because Canada has a small population. Canada's almost looking like Sweden in a way, just minus all the rape and all the stuff that is happening out in Sweden right now. You know, that's how bad Canada is getting. So when I see things like a third of Canadian businesses directors expect our economy to get worse, this is what it's saying here on this Financial Post ad, and you can actually look up this video that I was actually watching here. The Canadian economy is about to crash and burn. The channel is called Press for Truth, and it says right there on this little post that he's showing here on this video, it says a third of Canadian business directors expect our economy to get worse, and then the reasons on the bottom are political squabbles, rising interest rates, and uncertainty surrounding NAFTA talks are dampening Canada's business outlook. Like, just look at that, like NAFTA. Like, how many of you people know what NAFTA is? Like, of course, all these things are important. You know, these are things that we're connected to internationally. And a lot of people who are supposedly very smart will argue and say, yeah, you know, these are very important things that we're part of. But it's like, are they so important that they can influence a country like Canada that has so much potential, that should not be going through the same economical crisis as anyone else on the planet? And yet, you know, Canadians are basically worried about what NAFTA says. You know what I'm saying? Like, if those things, like, if the politicians are so bad in Canada, people got to start getting the idea of it and start complaining and start saying something about it. Start having TV shows or news networks or rival those news networks. People got to go out there and expand, just like they did in the States when the American dream was being made. You know, if you didn't like the way the government was doing something, if you didn't like the way local business was doing something, then you rivaled it. If you didn't like the way that newspaper conducted its business, then you rivaled it. But that's the problem with Canada, is that corporation owns it 100%. So it's not just regular people who can get out there and make their own newspaper. It's not just regular people that can go out there and make their own supermarket. It's not just regular people out there that can go into farming for themselves. It's not just regular people out there that can do anything anymore. Because things are so expensive and controlled by banks that whenever we're going to do something new, whenever we're going to challenge the narrative, it has to come from within the system. That's what's happening to Canadians. Like, in the States, even to this day, you know, because of their constitution, which you're trying to seriously remove, and just because of the way the culture is in the States, people still do that. Even though things are so bad politically in the States, there's so many censorship laws coming in there that people still have the pride and somehow find the resources, and they got the strength to go out there and challenge things, to try to change political opinion, to try to get their communities involved in doing something different. And places like Spain do that. Places like Italy do that. Unfortunately, places like Germany can't do that. You know why? Places like France can't do that. You know why? Places like the UK right now are trying to do that, but they can't. You know why? It's because those are systems that are very old, and very old systems where the government has always quelled that, has always stopped people from doing that, where it comes in and destroys people's rights and movements, even though they're proper, even though they're good. Look at that Tommy Robinson right now. You know, he just got arrested for questioning corruption in his government in the UK. You know what I'm saying? These are the kind of things that we see also in Canada. But there's a lot of countries out there they may have harder political struggles than we do in these kind of countries, but they still try to make a difference. Their culture still is strong enough for those people to have enough self-pride to not have to sit there and take those abuses from their own system, from banks and stuff like that. And if you look at the United States in its past, if you look at certain countries in Europe, a lot of countries that still to this day are struggling, but you're going to see that whenever problems happen, the people found a solution. It's not through war, it's not through riots, it's not through protesting. It's basically through communities and businesses, watching out for the interests of their own country, having a little bit of patriotism in that sense to better themselves. But out here right now in these countries, what's happening is that our rights are being taken away. Everything is being taken away, including our independence. Every single thing is being taken away. And our tax dollars are going who knows where. And yet here, we're worried about political squabbles, rising interest rates, and uncertainty surrounding NAFTA talks that are dampening Canadians' business outlook for the future. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of people may say, what is this guy talking about? But if you begin to actually break down what I'm saying, you're going to see that, at least for Canadians, they should not be going through these kind of scares and these kind of crises because of how big the country is, because of how much land and resources Canada has. Like, if they wanted to just keep the oil in Canada, the oil prices would be much cheaper. You know what I'm saying? But the thing is that the businesses that are in charge of us right now, these international businesses, it looks like they just want to reduce the world's population. They don't care. They don't care how much they tax you. They don't care if you die. They don't care if you go out and you have to rob someone in order to feed yourself. They don't care. For them, it's much better because it gives them the excuse to install more laws, more laws on hate speech. Why do you think they're installing all these laws on hate speech and bringing in this LGBT movement? Part of it is a strategy for the banks because it's putting so much laws and regulations to the point where we can't even mutter a different opinion from the consensus because we could possibly get arrested, just like they're doing in the UK right now. Arresting people, and on that same day, without a proper court or anything, they're just sentencing them to years in jail because they said something that was offensive. That's why you never allow these little lefty groups to come into our country and talk about, how we're offending someone because we're not calling them, because we're not saying that bisexuals got their own gender. You know what I'm saying? Like, all these stupid LGBT movements, all these stupid lefty socialist movements that are censoring our free speech. We can't say God, we can't say, that we want our kid to be straight anymore. If we even tell our kid that, hey, I don't want you to grow up gay, our kid could be taken away. We can't even spank our own kids when they're really being bad because it's child abuse. They're going to be taken away. You know what I'm saying? You can't bury your own dog in your own backyard in a grave that you got for him because you have to take your dog to a dump in order to be cremated, and you still have to pay $185. You can't have a dog because every year you have to have a license for owning your dog, which you pay like $200 for. You know what I'm saying? That's what I mean. These regulations are at the point where they can come and take away your animal, they can come and take away your property, they can come and take away family members, they can take you away for disagreeing. That's why banks like these movements, because it's helping them take control 100% to the point where we are going to have no freedom. And once our money goes into, let's just say, a cashless system, from there, our freedom, we will be tracked, we will be monitored, we can't have a different political opinion, because if they say that you're politically unstable, if you're challenging the consensus, if you're disagreeing with things, we cut off your money. You don't have a job, you don't have income, you don't have social security, you either have to go to a jail because people are not allowed to be homeless either. You see what I'm saying? That's like a communistic system right there. That is saying that this is for freedom, this is for your human rights, this is for your gay rights, yet they're turning you into a robot, into basically a piece of meat that they control 100%. But in your mind, or at least some people will think they're happy. But the majority of the people know something's wrong. but yet they have to confirm. Yet they have to continue watching the TV, the internet, and all these stupid movies and all these favorite shows, and still go drinking on the weekend, and still live the same life that is basically taking us away from what we are supposed to really do. And that is focus on our futures, not waste our futures. And with that kind of mindset, you enjoy your family more, you enjoy your marriage more, you enjoy your children more, you enjoy your job more, you enjoy your property more. But what's happening is that all these rules and regulations and price hikes and fears and political squabbles and people even like Justin Trudeau in Canada, who's a complete psychopath, maniac piece of crap, you know what I'm saying? And it's not even that particular prime minister. It's every prime minister they're having. It's every president you've had in the United States. It's every prime minister in the UK that you've had for the last 25 years and even longer. Because they're all just a bunch of faces that are put there by global banks, global leaders that have our country under control through the banking system. And they just throw these representatives out there once in a while to show face, to make us feel happy, and then also to take the fall whenever they impose a bunch of dumb laws that they didn't themselves make up. They're just basically saying that they're making up, but they're actually imposing on us at the will of the people who actually control them behind the scenes. Basically, they're handlers or whatever you want to call them. So that's what's happening in Canada right now. And it's not just Canada. This video is not just for Canada. It's for every country that's dealing with the same thing, and they don't have to. Banks are out of control. Our political situation is out of control. Censorship is out of control. And what it's looking at for the future is that it's going to put us into war. It's going to put us into tyranny. It's going to put us into censorship. And just what banks are doing alone to our lives. And you got to take a look. What banks alone are just doing to our lives internationally is tyranny. It's destroying our lives. It is tyranny. If anyone's telling you that you can't tell your kid that he doesn't have to be gay and to not support that gay movement, and someone is able to come arrest you for it or take away your kid, that right there is a tyrannical system. You know what I'm saying? If you can't question politics and you can get arrested or made look like a terrorist because you're questioning politics, that's living in tyranny. You know what I'm saying? If you can't practice your faith in peace because you got a bunch of TV shows in a system that is attacking your faith while they're implementing that Israel in the Middle East and all our tax dollars are going to that to cause wars to make refugees, then we're living under tyranny. We can't express ourselves. We can't live. We can't afford things. Very soon they want to take away our ability to trade and use cash to the point where the only way we're going to buy and sell is through that satanic New World Order cashless system. Even the Bible talks about that. You know, people who want to be free under that Satan system, you know, just to get into religion here for a second, you know, into that Satan system, they can't buy because they're not part of that Satan system. They don't want to participate in it. So they can't buy, they can't eat, they can't work, they can't do anything. What is our countries doing right now? They're trying to install a cashless system, and they're trying to use all these laws and regulations and censorship to make it happen, where people can't speak out against it, they can't question it, they can't change it, they can't remove it, they can't do anything against it. Yet, who has given the ownership to these banks? Who has given our planet to these banks? To the point where I can't trade, to the point where I can't grow food in the very soil that I live on. Why? Because who owns it? The government, the banks own it? We don't own it. No matter how much we pay, the only way we're going to be able to grow food is after we're paying our disgusting mortgage and we get a little tiny box in the corner of our house to plant whatever we want with no space, nothing. We want to go to a public forest outside or just in the middle of the mountain. We're not allowed to grow it because there's regulations. We can't throw a bunch of tomatoes on the ground, come back at the end of the year, take an hour drive and harvest all your tomatoes because it's illegal. It's illegal. You know what I'm saying? It's that bad. Let's just say people go homeless. They can't go out in the Canadian wilderness anymore and build a cabin because it's illegal. You know what I'm saying? You can't have a hunting rifle because you got to go get a license. You're living out in the wilderness and you still got to go in the city and buy your tickets so that you can hunt and survive. You know what I'm saying? That's how bad regulation is in a country that shouldn't have those regulations. You know what I'm saying? When you go camping, When you go camping, you have to pay to go camping now. You know what I'm saying? You have to pay to go across a bridge that you've already paid with through your tax dollars. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's just say you have 20 people in your family who have good jobs and are working hard. They're paying probably almost $1 million in tax a year put together. And will they ever see that money back again? No. That money is being spent on this system that is policing us, that is taking away our future, that is taking away food from our kids' mouths and giving it to a system that is policing us. Those are serious things that people got to look at. You know what I'm saying? So that's what the video is about. Just, you know, should we, or at least should people in Canada, you know, have to have these fears and these worries when there's so much potential in Canada? Should Canada be suffering the same way right now Italy and Spain is and the UK is? Should it? With the landmass that they have, the population that they have, the potential and opportunity that they have, I believe that they could do good for themselves, including help those countries that are struggling. Yet, we're being made look like an overpopulated country that's the size of that's the size of New York State. It's like our country's the size of Venezuela or Panama or something. And it's so populated, it's so bad that everything is so expensive, everything is so regulated, so censored. Yet look at the opportunity and potential Canada has. And there's people in Canada that can't afford to live right now. They can't afford what they're making at their job. And that has nothing to do with irresponsible Canadians or really our politicians. It has more to do with the things that are controlling our citizens and controlling our politicians through our banks, through that money that we're basically becoming slaves to all over the world. You know what I'm saying? Like those are the kind of things people should be looking at and questioning. And don't just, if your local politicians are such idiots, then let's make our own politicians. Start having people get involved in politics. And if those people in that old political circle won't support you, then make other politicians that will climb up with you and support you. You know what I'm saying? Talk to our police departments to say, we got to stop enforcing these laws. We have to send these laws back. And places like Canada have such small populations that it's very easy for people to spread that information and for it to eventually get back to Parliament or their political leaders that, hey, this is not working. You know what I'm saying? To the point where the people in those political offices who are actually imposing these laws and passing these laws, or who may have not been sure of these laws because they were passed down from a higher power, they can begin to question it too and make a case in a debate against it. But a lot of people are coming to realize that our systems are very corrupt. A lot of those politicians that we go to and talk to, a lot of those business owners at that large scale that we go to, have their own lives at risk. See, our own political leaders at the top, you know, people who may have a heart, people who may want to make a difference with their power. Let's just say a prime minister. You know, maybe he does have a good heart, but he's being told by all these international banks and business and people that are more powerful than him, including other countries that have interest in our future by exploiting it, you know, are trying to convince this guy that passing all these tyrannical laws are good. And even that person might have, you know, a want to make things different. Yet they can't because they're under threat. Because they could be arrested, they can be held in contempt, they could have their lives affected. Who knows? They may even have their lives threatened. You know, if you begin to go into Freemasonry, you know, and into really what our intelligence services are, you know what I'm saying, like our military infrastructures, you're going to begin to see that there's a lot of corruption. There's a lot of people that are basically living in like a mafia gang system. That where if they go against their own partners and system, their lives could be at risk. You know, their futures could be at risk. Without any law or support or any police there to help them, they could have their lives either disappear, be ruined, you know what I'm saying, be brought back to a level where they can't function or properly live. And that's what happens when you allow tyranny, when you allow censorship, when you allow a system that doesn't respect its own population to take over. Even the leaders that are managing us and we think supposedly have the power cannot do anything. That's why it's up to us at these lower levels. If we're starving anyways, if we're suffering anyways, if we're getting drafted anyways, if we're eating genetically modified food anyways that is giving us cancer, if we're watching this media that is completely corroding us anyways, if we're getting all this censorship put on us anyways, if we're going to jail for questioning the system anyways, if these people want population on our countries, population control on our countries anyways, then I guess we got nothing to lose by standing up against these systems and influencing a better future. And while we're doing that, begin to enjoy our lives more. Begin to make our own movies, our own media, our own ways of currency, our own ways of growing our own food. You know what I'm saying? If that camping ground is so expensive, then maybe someone else should invest in that, have a big property, you know what I'm saying, buy a national park, or make a national park, whatever they do. You know what I'm saying? It's not like people in Canada, there's not enough people that have enough money either that they can't buy big pieces of land and begin to get into that themselves. Begin to get into engineering, get into politics. Get into making places like Canada better, and other people around the world making their own countries better. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm ranting a lot of this stuff out. I'm not scripting a lot of this stuff. A lot of this stuff may sound far-fetched to people, while a lot of this stuff is making perfect sense to people because everybody is seeing this stuff. Everybody's seeing this stuff for themselves. Everybody's seeing that our political systems are going nuts, and are holding us hostage with this whole NAFTA and banking and global warming and social justice and, don't be offensive to gays and whatnot. No one's being offensive to gays. Look at LGBT. It's pedophilia. It's attacking our kids. And the Canadian government is allowing that stuff to basically terrorize and hurt our families, manipulate our families, radicalize our families. Well, we're supposed to be focusing on better things, like how to fix our political situations, how to fix our financial crises. Why is our mortgages so expensive? Why is rent so expensive? Instead of going and making a gay pride march parade across your city and making fun of people who want to have families and a marriage and at the same time spreading pedophilia, why don't you make a parade for bettering our countries? Why don't you get together, sit down, and talk about how to better our countries? So that you don't got all these media outlets saying that anyone who questions the system is a radical, is a terrorist, is crazy. That's why we need people questioning these things for themselves. You know what I'm saying? And saying, hey, wait a second. I'm not a radical just because I don't want to pay this much rent. I'm not a radical just because I don't want to pay all these interest rates. I don't want to pay this much for a house. It doesn't make sense. That person doesn't want to sell their house for that much because then they're going to have to go buy a house that's even more expensive. Every month houses are going up. It seems like we're making a fortune, but our fortune is being wasted on this system. We can't buy a new house. We're going to buy a new car. We're going to pay for gasoline. All that money that we thought we made off selling that really expensive house is going to paying debt, is going to paying interest rates. You know what I'm saying? It's horrible. You want to give someone a proper funeral nowadays, you have to buy a little piece of land, you have to do this. That's what I meant about your dog. You can't even bury your dog because now you got to pay to bury your dog too. You can't even bury it. You got to cremate it in places like Canada. It's that bad. You know what I'm saying? And then you got a police system. You got police officers that are putting handcuffs on people, and they're feeling bad because they're doing it. But are they stopping? Are they saying, wait a second, you know what? I'm not going to enforce this law. No, they're not doing it because their families are also threatened by the system. They also got a mortgage they have to pay. If they don't enforce this tyrannical law, they're screwed also. So you can't even have patriotism in these countries because of the way banks are controlling them. It may sound far-fetched to a lot of people who are used to watching the mainstream media every single day to hear an opinion like this. You know what I'm saying? Or the way it's coming out of my mouth. I'm not sitting here and I'm not scripting this and I'm not explaining to you this where every single word has meaning. You can hear that I got frustration in my voice. You can hear that I'm very passionate about this topic. That I'm telling people this, I'm not really just telling them. I'm making a complaint for myself. I'm trying to drive into people, hey man, this is something serious. You can't allow it to keep going on. You have to begin to investigate what's going on around you. You have to talk to your brothers and sisters and friends and neighbors about what's going on. You know what I'm saying? Take a break from the TV and social media for once, for Christ's sakes, and begin to actually look at what's happening to your bloody country. You know what I'm saying? So every time someone does start yelling on the street and saying, this is what's happening, you don't go out them calling them crazy. You know, you don't have your community start clashing heads because they don't know how to work together. You know what I'm saying? We are more important. Our neighbors are more important. What's happening to our neighbor's family, our own family, is way more important than the gossip right now on TV or the internet. You know what I'm saying? Or the drama, or what this person in Hollywood said. You know what I'm saying? You're going to begin to see that those people out in Hollywood are basically laughing at you. They're rubbing their body, their presence in your face. You know what I'm saying? Making you worship them, their skin, their flesh, their disgusting ideas. And you don't even know who these people are. And you are more focused about finding out what these idols got to say to you than what's happening to your very own family, community, and neighbors. That's a very important thing to look at. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If I said anything offensive, you know what I'm saying? Just because I mentioned gay doesn't mean I'm homophobic. Just because I said, hey, what about patriotism in our own cultures? It doesn't mean that I'm just talking about white people or being racist. You know what I'm saying? I'm speaking the truth. And that's what's happening right now with all this censorship and all this you can't say this, and not just focusing 100% on the media without focusing on our own lives. That's what's happening. It's to the point where you can't even talk about real events without someone either getting offended or saying or asking themselves, why is he saying that? Why he's attacking me? That's how are being made to believe in our schools and through our media. You know what I'm saying? Well, everything around us is turning into just tyranny. That's what our government's doing, is basically controlling our lives 100%. You know, I don't think that's a free world. I don't think that's being happy. You know, I don't see a cashless society being good. I see us just paying more, losing our rights, to the point where we're losing our lives. Look at genetically modified food alone. That's what they're selling. That's the only thing that our supermarkets are selling. And there's going to be a point where we're going to be forced to buy that. That's why they're not allowing us to grow our own food. And what is genetically modified food? It gives you poison. It's changing it's changed the genetics of food. It's not natural food anymore. Just look up pictures alone. Just look up right now. Genetically modified corn being fed to rats. And you tell me if genetically modified food giving you tumors is good for you. Yet, we are being so dumbed down through repetitive media that we can't even question things. We don't even know how to question things. We go, oh, this food's so good. You know, oh, I never hear that it's bad. Why are all these conspiracy theorists talking about that? Maybe because there was a point where it wasn't a conspiracy theory. Maybe because a lot of scientists, a lot of doctors, a lot of nutrition, a lot of health experts have came out and told us what genetically modified food is. Scientists have broken down what genetically modified food is. But since then, those things are being censored. You know, those doctors are being told not to talk about that. You know, that if you talk about that, you could get in trouble. You could lose your practice, your career. Because you're talking against something that the law says you can't talk against. And then when you question the law, you're basically questioning law and order. And you can't question things anymore. Because you're not allowed to. Because the government has made it impossible for you to do that. Also, look up right now that Tommy Robinson. I don't know who this guy is, his background. You know what I'm saying? He could be controlled opposition for all you know. But the guy went to go protest government corruption. He did not break the law at all. And you know what happened to this guy? You know what happened to this guy? He got arrested on the street. And that same day, he was sentenced to 13 months in prison. Just because he was talking about corruption in Britain. Because he was telling people to question things. To ask why we have a refugee crisis. To ask why, basically, we are creating problems through our politics, through our tax. That is creating wars and unhealthy situations for people. and it's bringing a bunch of migrants to our country that are suffering, that are dealing with things, and then our people are questioning things, and our people are being called racist. And it's become so bad that now when you actually question things in public in the UK, you get arrested. The government orders all media outlets not to report on it because they could be arrested. It tells citizens not to talk about it because they could be arrested, not to talk about the reason why the person was arrested, without a proper trial. That right there, our friendly UK, the friendly England, that we so admire and have the Queen's head, all over Canadian coins. That's what they're doing. And to think that Canada's following suit in that. You know what I'm saying? It's gotten so bad to the point where people are waking up one day and realizing that their children and neighbors are being arrested because they're simply questioning things politically. Because they have different political opinions from the consensus. If that's not tyranny, if that's not evidence enough that something is terribly wrong, then I don't know what to tell you. But anyways, there's my video. Excuse me for any errors or if I got tongue-tied or if I made a rant that didn't exactly at that moment, the words weren't the best because I'm not scripting this. I apologize. But beside that, I'm not going to apologize to anyone for going out there and expressing my honest opinion about things that are actually happening. I have the right, even if there's laws that are there saying that you can't have free speech, that you can't live, that you can't feed yourself, you still go out there and let your voice be heard and feed yourself. Because no one has a right to take that away from you. No one, no matter how much they manipulate the laws. Even if you're born in their prison cell, they still don't have the right to do that. Anyways, guys, until next time, take care and goodbye.